In a small, dusty town where the sun set like a fiery ball over the horizon, there lived a gunslinger named Jack. Once feared for his quick draw and sharp aim, Jack was a man who had carved his name into the hearts of many, but not always for good reasons. His reputation was built on a past filled with gunfights and chaos, where every bullet he fired echoed stories of loss and sorrow. But that was not the man Jack wanted to be anymore. He had chosen a different path, one that led him away from the violence that had defined his life. After years of wandering and searching for meaning, Jack decided to hang up his revolver, seeking redemption instead of revenge. The moment he placed his weapon on the shelf felt like a weight lifted from his shoulders, allowing him to breathe in the sweet air of peace. Jack embraced his new life, helping neighbors with their chores and teaching children how to read. He found joy in simple things, like watching the sun rise over the plains or hearing laughter echo through the streets. In this quiet existence, he thought he had finally left his dark past behind. Little did he know that fate had other plans for him, plans that would shatter the calm and force him to confront the choices he made long ago. The small town of Willow Creek was a quiet place, where life moved at a slower pace. Dusty streets lined with modest wooden houses welcomed anyone who passed through. Once, the sound of gunfire would disrupt its serenity, but now the only noises were the rustling leaves and the laughter of children playing in the sun. The townsfolk had grown used to the calm, their hearts lightened by Jack's presence and his commitment to peace. Colorful flowers bloomed in front yards, and neighbors greeted one another with warm smiles and friendly waves. The church bells rang every Sunday, filling the air with a sense of community and belonging. Jack often helped out at the local school, encouraging children to dream big and learn new things. His kind heart opened doors for friendship, creating bonds that stitched together the fabric of their lives. As days turned into weeks, Willow Creek transformed from a place once marred by fear into a town filled with hope. The townspeople would gather around bonfires in the evenings to share stories and laughter, all feeling a sense of safety they had longed for. Yet, beneath this beautiful surface, shadows lingered, reminders that peace could be fragile. Jack's past may have faded like old memories, but fate had a way of reminding him that darkness could return when least expected. In Willow Creek, a bright young boy named Tommy was known for his infectious smile and boundless energy. At just 10 years old, he dreamed of becoming a cowboy, like those he had heard about in stories his father would tell. Dressed in a worn-out hat and scuffed boots, he played pretend with the other children, riding imaginary horses through fields of tall grass and chasing after the wind. Tommy had a special bond with the townsfolk, always offering a helping hand or sharing laughter that could lighten even the heaviest hearts. Mrs. Jenkins, the local baker, would reward him with fresh cookies whenever he helped her carry in supplies, while old Mr. Thompson would share tales of his own childhood adventures. Tommy listened intently, soaking up their wisdom and warmth as he forged connections with everyone around him. Every Sunday, Tommy eagerly watched Jack at the church, fascinated by the man who had chosen peace over violence. He looked up to Jack as a hero, believing that true strength lay not in guns but in kindness and compassion. With dreams that sparkled brighter than the stars above Willow Creek, Tommy was a symbol of innocence, a reminder that love and unity were what truly built a community. However, unknown to all, fate had darker plans for this spirited boy that would shatter the peace Jack had fought so hard to build. It was a bright Sunday morning, and the air was filled with the sound of laughter as townsfolk gathered outside the church for the weekly service. Tommy was among them, his excitement bubbling over as he played with a group of friends near the church steps. The sun shone down, casting a warm glow on the scene, but an ominous shadow lurked just beyond the town's borders. Suddenly, the peaceful atmosphere shattered like glass. A loud commotion interrupted the joyful chatter, drawing every eye toward the street where a group of strangers had appeared on horseback, their intentions unclear. Jack stood at the church entrance, his heart racing as he sensed something was wrong. He saw Tommy, blissfully unaware, running toward the strangers with his usual curiosity. Before anyone could react, chaos erupted. A heated argument broke out between one of the horsemen and a local man who had stepped forward to confront them. In an instant, emotions escalated beyond control. A gunshot rang out, piercing through laughter and joy. Time seemed to freeze as everyone turned in horror to see Tommy collapse on the ground. Gasps filled the air while Jack's heart sank. He rushed forward, pushing through the crowd that stood frozen in shock. The boy who had brought so much light to Willow Creek lay still before him, innocence lost in an instant. Jack knelt beside him, agony crashing down like an unrelenting wave, realizing that his choice to embrace peace had not shielded them from violence after all. As Jack knelt beside Tommy's lifeless body, a storm of emotions surged within him. Anger fizzed like a boiling pot over an open flame, directed not only at the gunman but also at himself. Memories of his past flooded back. The dark days of violence, the fear he had instilled in others, and the lives lost because of his choices. The echoes of gunshots that once defined him now rang in his ears with haunting clarity. Guilt twisted in his gut like a snake constricting its prey. Tommy had looked to him as a beacon of hope, and Jack had promised to protect the boy's innocence by fostering a peaceful community. Yet here he was powerless to save him. How could he have let this happen? In that moment, the weight of his decision to give up his revolver felt heavier than ever. Was he truly strong for choosing peace? Or was he just foolish? As townspeople gathered around them, their faces painted with shock and grief, Jack felt suffocated by helplessness. Each tear shed was a reminder of his failure to shield them from harm. Anguish clawed at his heart, forcing him to confront a painful question. Could he continue living in this world without taking up arms again? The darkness he thought he had escaped was creeping back into his life, threatening to swallow him whole once more. The news of Tommy's death spread through Willow Creek like wildfire, igniting a wave of grief and outrage among the townsfolk. Friends and family gathered outside the church, their faces etched with shock and sorrow. Whispers filled the air, blending with muffled cries as parents hugged their children tightly, fearing for their safety in a place that once felt so secure. In the days that followed, anger simmered just beneath the surface. A few locals began to rally together, calling for justice against the gunmen who had shattered their peace. "We cannot let this stand," they proclaimed, urging others to take action. Town meetings erupted into heated debates about what should be done. Should they seek revenge? Should they form a posse to track down the culprits? The sense of community that Jack had helped build was now strained by fear and a thirst for vengeance. Jack stood on the sidelines, wrestling with his own turmoil as he listened to voices rise in fury. He felt torn between his commitment to peace and the palpable desire for justice swirling around him. The town he had worked so hard to protect was being consumed by darkness once again, reminding him that healing would not come easily after such a tragic loss. As tensions rose, Jack realized he might need to step forward, not just as a protector, but also as a leader in guiding them toward understanding amidst their grief. As days turned into a week, the unrest in Willow Creek grew more palpable. Town meetings that had once been filled with laughter and camaraderie now echoed with shouts of anger and calls for revenge. Groups of neighbors gathered in hushed circles, their voices tense as they discussed what to do about the gunman who had taken Tommy's life. Some insisted they must take matters into their own hands, while others warned against letting rage consume them. Jack observed from a distance, his heart heavy as he saw old friends turning on each other. The unity he had helped foster was unraveling, replaced by fear and a thirst for vengeance. "We can't let them get away with this," shouted one man, his fists clenched in anger, igniting a fervor among the crowd. The atmosphere shifted. It felt electric with tension as whispers of forming a posse gained traction. Mothers clutched their children tighter, afraid that the chaos would spiral out of control. Jack felt an overwhelming urge to intervene but hesitated, unsure how to quell the rising tide of violence without resorting to the very actions he had sworn off. As night fell over Willow Creek, shadows danced across the streets where laughter once flourished. Jack knew that if he didn't act soon, the community he loved could be lost forever to darkness and despair. He resolved that he must find a way to channel this anger into healing rather than destruction before it was too late. In the dim light of his cabin, Jack sat at a wooden table, the weight of his decision pressing down on him like a heavy storm cloud. Before him lay his old revolver, untouched and collecting dust since the day he vowed to abandon violence. The memories of gunfire and chaos danced in his mind, mingling with the haunting image of Tommy's smiling face now lost forever. He felt torn, his heart yearning for justice for the boy he had failed to protect while his conscience screamed for peace. Anger bubbled within him, fueled by the cries for vengeance echoing through Willow Creek. The townsfolk were restless, their thirst for retribution growing stronger with each passing day. How could Jack stand by and watch as fear and hatred threatened to undo all the good he had worked for? The temptation to pick up his revolver grew stronger, promising a sense of power and control he hadn't felt in years. But then he remembered Tommy, his laughter, his dreams, and the hope he represented for a brighter future. Jack realized that taking up arms again would only perpetuate a cycle of violence. He closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. He had to find another way to fight back, one that upheld the promise he made to himself and the community he loved. With renewed determination, Jack resolved to stand firm in his commitment to peace, seeking justice through understanding rather than bullets. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows over the dusty streets of Willow Creek as Jack stood face to face with the gunman outside the saloon. Tensions had reached a boiling point. The townspeople had discovered who was responsible for Tommy's death, and they had brought Jack to confront them. A crowd gathered behind him, their eyes filled with a mixture of fear and fury. "Get out of our town!" one of the men shouted, his hand resting on his pistol. Jack could see the confidence and bravado in his stance, but he also sensed an undercurrent of uncertainty. These men were not just criminals. They were desperate and afraid. Jack felt the weight of his past pressing down on him. Memories of gunfights flashed through his mind, how quickly they escalated and the destruction they left behind. As much as he wanted to act on the anger burning inside him, he knew he couldn't slip back into that life. "This isn't how we handle things," he called out, trying to steady his voice despite the turmoil within him. The crowd shifted behind him, some urging him to fight back while others whispered words of caution. Jack took a deep breath, feeling the echoes of Tommy's laughter in his heart. Instead of drawing his weapon, he stepped forward, hands open in peace. "This ends here. We can choose another way." His challenge hung in the air, a moment of choice between violence and mercy, the ultimate test of his resolve. Would he confront their demons with hatred or lead them toward understanding? The air was thick with tension as Jack's voice cut through the noise. "This ends here," he asserted, staring directly into the eyes of the gunman and the townsfolk behind him. "We cannot fight hatred with hatred." Tommy wouldn't have wanted that. A heavy silence fell over the gathering, punctuated only by the soft rustle of wind through the trees. Most of the crowd fell silent, grappling with Jack's words and their own anger. He took a measured step forward, feeling a spark of courage rise within him. What if we choose forgiveness instead? What if we allow ourselves to heal instead of tearing apart our community further? His plea lingered in the air, stirring thoughts among those who listened. Slowly, voices softened, and expressions shifted from fury to contemplation. Jack turned to the gunman, whose bravado seemed to waver under his gaze. "You made a terrible mistake, but we can work to understand why it happened," he said calmly. The contrast between Jack's open heart and the defiance of the gunman drew them closer together, revealing a path to redemption. In that moment, love triumphed over anger. The townsfolk began to murmur their agreement, and even the gunman felt the weight of their actions bearing down on them in a way that drew tears rather than bullets. Jack realized that by choosing mercy, he not only honored Tommy's memory but also forged a new future for Willow Creek, a place where healing could begin and true strength lay in compassion. In the days that followed the confrontation, Jack took time to reflect on what it truly meant to be strong. As he walked through the streets of Willow Creek, he observed the townspeople engaging in heartfelt conversations, sharing stories of Tommy and their hopes for healing. He realized that strength was not measured by the ability to wield a gun or seek revenge. Rather, it lay in the courage to forgive and the commitment to build a better future together. Jack understood now that true redemption came from embracing love and compassion over anger. The community was beginning to heal, slowly but surely, as they transformed their grief into acts of kindness. Families supported each other, children played freely again, and even those who had once been adversaries found common ground in shared sorrow. As he stood outside the church where Tommy had lost his life, Jack made a silent promise to himself and to the boy's memory. He vowed never to let fear dictate his actions again. Instead, he would lead with an open heart, fostering understanding and unity among the people of Willow Creek. With every step forward, Jack felt lighter. He knew that while scars might remain from this tragedy, they could serve as reminders of how far they had come. In choosing forgiveness and community over vengeance, he had finally found peace, not just within himself but also in the hearts of those around him. Together, they would create a brighter future built on love and understanding.